I built for me the first modules. I want to have it. Everybody said, "You're crazy. Nobody wants that shit."
Yes, in this episode of Why We Bleep, we will meet the great DIETER Doepfer. Did you know that the Eurorack modular synth concept is 30 years old this year? Not 13, 30. The podcast that follows is a live recording recorded on stage with Doepfer at Machina Bristronica in 2024, where I had the opportunity to get the story behind one of the most influential living synth designers. We learn how to correctly pronounce his surname, spoiler alert, how it all began, making instruments for Kraftwerk. We find out why the red stripe is negative, and it's a really good answer. And we ask generally how Doepfer modules came to be, his favourite modules and the process, and what it's like to give birth to an entire format, but like a whole industry, because that's what he did. And I'll also ask about the future. And that's because DIETER has stepped down from daily management. And we're joined on stage and in this interview by Holger Zapf, who takes over the daily running of the Doepfer company. If you enjoy Why We Bleep, please consider sponsoring on Patreon to help fund episodes. And we'll begin the podcast after these important messages. Why We Bleep is sponsored by Signal Sounds. Darling, you all right? You haven't touched your pile of 52 Kinder eggs. Oh, darling, I don't know anymore. I'm struggling with my sense of modular stasis. I just have a boring old system, just an oscillator to filter to output. No life, no weird, no colour, no vibes. Oh, darling, didn't you see Signal Sounds' latest mail out? You need the No Modular Major Tom sequencer. Big knobs, big rhythms, big everything. Or the Wong Electronics Quiver, an absolute Swiss Army unit, brimming with utilities for proper modular heads, densely populated field of CV possibilities and analog logic thingies. Or the Electrophon Clang, out of stock for a mind-bending 5 years. A gorgeous Bauhausy beauty with 4-voice polyphonic madness. And for your computer, darling, the Melbourne Instruments Rotor Control with the new V2 firmware. It's a load of useful updates and full bitwig compatibility. You'll be sending weird handmade LFOs to modulate your modules to bits in no time. You know, that's why I married you, darling. Pass the salt. So if you're in dire need of tremendously intense equipment vibes, visit signalsounds.com. That's signalsounds.com. Why We Bleep is also sponsored by Point Blank Music School. I've been hearing a lot about Point Blank Music School lately. And if you're into music production or just love making music, it might be something worth checking out. Point Blank have got campuses in London, LA, Ibiza, and even online. And what's interesting is that everything they do is centered around music production. So whether you're into sound engineering, DJing, songwriting, or even music software engineering, Point Blank have a path for you. And if a full-on degree feels like a bit too much right now, Point Blank also do short courses in things like Logic, Ableton, spatial audio, mixing and mastering, live sound, and podcasting too. So there's a lot of flexibility depending on where you're at. Point Blank hold regular open days at their campuses in Shoreditch, London and Hollywood, LA, where you can tour the studios, meet the staff and students, and get a feel for whether it's right for you. Applications are still open for October of this year, so it's a great time to look into it. You can find all the info at pointblankmusicschool.com. And now, on with the show. Thank you for being here. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
It's my pleasure.
DIETER, I want to start with you and just ask a formal bit of housekeeping. Like all great synth designers, you have a last name that people disagree on the pronunciation of. And so I'd like to just set the record straight. How do I pronounce your last name?
Well, The correct pronunciation is Doepfer.
Doepfer.
It's. I think I heard 20 or 30 different versions of it, like Doepfer, Doepfer, Doepfer. But the correct is Doepfer, like the I in bird,
Yeah.
Doepfer. So,
Doepfer.
Yeah.
Obviously, we have a lot to talk about, and you have an illustrious career, Holger, you're here representing a new generation of this company, as I understand. I think it might be quite helpful to understand what your job titles are now. Can I ask you what they are?
Well, on paper, my job title is CEO, which is I do the paperwork and Dieter can keep doing the cool stuff. Yes, that's kind of it.
Yeah. And Dieter, what is your job role now, officially?
Well, my official job is, how do I say, a consultant for the Doepfer company. So my main focus will be in the future the design of new modules and maybe interviews like that.
Yeah. When you were a little kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to become, locomotive driver. No,
Oh, really? Steam train driver?
Yeah. That
Amazing.
when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Okay, but later I became familiar with different kind of music. My father was a conductor of a choir and a small orchestra from a company. They make trucks, MAN. I'm not sure if that's... Yeah. So they had a location near Munich, and my father was the conductor of the MAN choir and the MAN orchestra. And so I became a little bit familiar with music. And the first contact to music was that I had to play accordion every day, half an hour.
Oh, wow.
So I hated it, but now it's different because it helped me. All the other guys, they were playing guitars and they were around with the girls, and I was playing accordion, which was not really a cool instrument at that time.
Was it your father that was asking you to play accordion? Why that?
He said you have to learn an instrument, and I could decide between piano or accordion, or there is another instrument, I don't know how it's called, it's in Bavaria, Zither. I don't know what it is.
Oh, well, I think that is still called Zither, because there's no other instrument like
the
that.
The strings and the sort of...
It's like that with a lot of strings like that, and you play it with the fingers.
Like the Third Man and all that.
Yes, yeah. Did you come to love the accordion then, or the kind of... Because it's almost a synth, right? It has a kind of drony or like synthy vibe.
No, I didn't love the accordion, but a few years later, I changed over to guitar because it was much cooler at the time. You could take it with you to the sea and have barbecue and things like that. It was much cooler than accordion.
Did you have, or were you going to some form of education that would take you down an electronics path at that point, or were you? How do you go from someone who has a passing forced interest in music to someone who has electrical experience and some interest in technology?
Yeah. Well, that's a funny story. I told it to Holger during the flight today. My father had a guitar, a classic guitar, and I found a pickup which I could position into the hole of the pickup, and I had a transistor radio, and I found a way to connect the pickup of the guitar to the guitar radio by soldering a little bit and removing the tuner, which the radio sound comes, and it was possible to connect the guitar directly to the transistor radio and play the guitar via the transistor radio. I was always a little bit interested in light show. There were at that time there were small lamps which could blink. It was kind of a, I don't know, say bimetal or bimetal inside, which turned the lamp on and off. And when the battery power of the transistor went low, and I connected the blinking lamp also to the battery, it came a kind of tremolo and distortion.
Yeah.
And this was my first effect unit. So that's, I think I was, I don't know, 12 years, 13 years, like that. And I was playing in bands also, but it turned out that I'm much more interested in the electronic side of the music than playing music really myself. So I was playing guitar at the time, and I remember I was trying to play the guitar solo of Child in Time, and I had a tape recorder which could play at half the speed, and I didn't make it at half the speed. And so I decided, okay, you have to do something different, like a sequencer or something like that. So that's how I came to electronics.
Yeah. But then did you study it? Did you go to university or college or the equivalent to do electronics? What was your education?
I studied physics. When I began, the idea was to go into direction astronomy, but at the end of the studies, where I was also playing in different bands, I decided at the end of the study not to go to astronomy,
to look up,
but to build electronic musical instruments, and it was really the hell, because I was the black sheep of the family.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because you finished your studies, and now you throw everything away which you learned and do something like that. It was a hard time, and it took a lot of years until my parents accepted what I do.
Yeah, it's really hard. But what had inspired you to throw away this course of development? Why did you need to do electronics?
When I was playing in the bands, there were always amplifiers which had to be repaired, or a wah-wah pedal or so on. And I learned a little bit how to repair these things. And if you repair, you also learn about the circuits which are used. And it turned out very soon that this is my way, and not playing music, it's my way to build instruments.
So then what happened? Did you start a company right away, or did you make products, or were you just a repairman? How did it happen?
At the end of my studies, I had to go to Zivildienst. I don't know how do you so.
It was a kind of a public service you could do instead of going to the army.
Right.
When you still had that duty in Germany. So that was Zivildienst would translate as civil service, but it was instead of going to the army. It was a bit longer though.
You kind of did the German civil service.
And during this time, I had not the normal job which you have when you do this. I was in a hospital, Augenoptik, for eyes, ophthalmologue.
Ophthalmic.
Ophthalmic. Yeah. And because I was already a physicist, they were very happy because they had to pay only a few hundred euros for a physicist. And I was happy that I had not to do the normal job. So I was assistant for laser operations and things like that, and had a lot of free time. And during this 1.5 years, I designed my first modules at this time. One of the first modules was a voltage-controlled phaser, which was compatible to the Foreman system, which was very popular at the time. Foreman was a DIY synthesizer system which was published in a magazine called Elector, and every month another module was published. So it took, I don't know, 15 or 18 months until the complete system was ready.
But then, so you've made a module, and did you sell it? What did you do with it?
I put small ads into the magazine Elector, where was the foreman published, and at the beginning I just offered the empty, unpopulated PC boards. So I said, you can order from me for, I don't know, 5 Deutschmarks unpopulated PC board, and you obtain the schematics and so on. This was the very first public appearance from me.
Was it called Doepfer? What was it was?
Yeah, my name.
Yeah.
Just with DIETER Doepfer, no music electronic, just my name. And then people asked, is it possible to obtain it as a kit with all the parts? Is it possible to obtain it ready built? Is it possible to obtain it with front panel and so on? So this was the beginning.
And so, did you leave and start making more, or was it you managed to make a go of it, as we would say? You made a living right away.
In the beginning, my father supported me, because I think it took, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, because there was enough earnings for my living. And after the voltage phaser, where I designed a few other modules which were foreman compatible, like an external input with envelope follower, frequency divider, and a few other things which were not published from the Elector magazine.
Yeah. Can I ask you, before we go much further, what was your first synth encounter? What was the first synth that you got to try?
Well, I think the first synth was based on Curtis chips, because I contacted Doug Curtis about the idea to have a European distributor. At the beginning, the Curtis chips were available only in the United States from Curtis directly. And we met in Munich in the Hofbräuhaus, I remember. And so we made a contract that I could become the German representative of Curtis. The main problem was that I had to order 1,000 of each.
Well, they're only small, right?
Yeah. It was a one-man show, and I didn't have enough money. And so again, I asked my father if we could make an agreement that he gives me the money, and he obtains from me the money which was collected in my Bausparvertrag. I don't know. That's.
Oh, what's that? Sorry, I don't know that word in English. It's something. As far as I know, that was also kind of when you could make a kind of a savings contract with a bank. Yeah. But if you said you'd save it up for a house, it would get kind of subsidized by the state, partly. That's a Bausparvertrag. So it would have a running time of a certain... I don't know if there's something similar in English.
I don't know, it's something similar. But it sounds like... Well, I'm glad to hear that your father was helping you at
so
this
we
point.
changed. He got the money which was collected in this Bausparvertrag, and he gave me the cash, and so was able to pay the Curtis chips. And then I designed from the Curtis chips the first synthesizer. It was called Voice Card. It was 2 VCOs, 2 envelope generators, VCA, just a basic synthesizer.
And is that rack mount thing? What is there is like a Doepfer rack mount synth, or what was it called, that device?
The MS404.
MS404,
But that was much later.
So what, at this point, you've made some modules, and is it at that time that you're also distributing Curtis chips? How do we then go to the sort of creation of the MS404, these standalone things, and then leading into the Eurorack?
Well, after the voice card, and it was called Voice Card System, there were also another second board with LFOs and sample and hold and noise and so on. At this time, there was not that much interest in analog synths. And
what year is this?
when came the DX7.
1983.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think it was early in the 80s.
Yeah.
And everybody was looking
A
after
bad time. I mean,
after
yeah.
digital synth, and so we decided, or I decided to design different things, and these were MIDI master keyboards.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we started with a low-cost master keyboard, LM-Key3, and so on. And for a couple of years, we just sold master keyboards, and from the money we made with the master keyboards, I began in the 90s, early in the 90s, again to design analog synthesizer, and the first product which you mentioned was the MS404.
And how was it received? Was it 92 or thereabout? When would it have been?
It was about 92,
Yeah.
91, 92, yeah.
Were people thanking you, or were they like,
Yeah,
did they get it?
When I published it, it was totally different. Some guys said, nobody wants such an analog synth. Why do we? I said, I do it for me because I want to have it. It's not how do I say, because of the money. It was for me, and I said, okay, let's see if we sell 100 of them. That's fine for me. And there was the first report in a German magazine, and within 1 week we had 500 orders. So it was wow.
That's great. And then you obviously have things like the MAQ 16.3 and what else am I thinking of? And did that come afterwards? And is that before Eurorack as that sequencer?
That was before the time. The MAQ 16.3 was based on a cooperation with Kraftwerk.
I'd like to ask you about that.
So one day a guy called me, Florian Schneider. At this time I didn't know who it is. And he asked me if it would be possible for me to build an interface for a keyboard, for a computer keyboard, but it's a phonetic keyboard. That means you don't have the standard characters. For example, it had 3 or 4 different S, like a voiced S, like Z, an unvoiced S, and a sharp S, and it was phonetic keyboard.
Yeah.
So all the phonemes were on it.
Yeah.
And he wanted an interface that converts the pressure of this phonetic keyboard into MIDI messages, where he could control a sampler where the phonemes were stored. So MIDI note number 17 is sharp S, and in the sample he had the sharp S, things like that. And so began the cooperation with Kraftwerk. And one day he said, there are so many analog sequencers on the market, but we need an analog sequencer which has a MIDI output, which doesn't output CV and gate, because at this time MIDI was very popular. And he said, I wanted to have the analog control with all these knobs, but I need a MIDI output. So this was how the MAQ 16.3 started.
You designed it, but what were the kinds of things that he was putting in? What were the ideas that he brought to that?
We built, I don't know, 2 or 3 prototypes, and we went to Düsseldorf, where Kraftwerk was located, and he said, okay, I need some kind of interface to adjust the MIDI channel for each row, and the MIDI note numbers, and the first and last step, and the direction, and so on. And so in addition to the 3 rows of the sequencer, there was a small interface where he could adjust these parameters.
So of all of the kind of collaboration and the time that you spent there, are there any memories that stand out, or just impressions of that band and that experience of working with them?
Kraftwerk were my heroes much earlier. And I never thought that there could be some kind of cooperation or even friendship with the guys of Kraftwerk. So I was really overwhelmed when Florian asked me and began this cooperation. So it was, it was really fun for me, and I'm very proud that I could help them.
Yeah. Tell me about Eurorack then. So my understanding is that Eurorack comes out in 1995, if that's right. And I remember talking to someone I know in the industry who he was like, I was there, I was there at the show in 95, and maybe it was Music Messe. I'll have to get you to correct. And he was like, there's all of this digital stuff and the VA things, and there's Roland doing the MC303 and stuff like that. And then there's this like Doepfer guy over in the corner, and he's doing this awesome thing with like the modulars, and it's like, yeah, like this is so great. And I'm interested in what was the genesis of the idea, and the standard that it was. I've tried to look up what it was that you took and adapted, and I don't understand what it is. And also I'm curious about what the reaction to it was at the time, because as we all know now, with hindsight, it feels like at the time in 1995, it did not become the phenomenon that it would become much later. And so it's interesting to see what your vision was for it at the start. So maybe you could tell me some of that story.
Well, after all, the A100 is based on the MS404. Because of the big success of the MS404, I said, okay, why not build a modular system similar to the MS404? And actually, the first A100 modules like the VCO, VCF, VCA, and envelope generators are nothing but the schematics of the MS404. And for example, the A110 VCO, which is still available without any modification, or even the envelope generator, is exactly the circuit of the MS404. And then I said, okay, I built for me the first modules. I want to have it. Everybody said, you're crazy. No, nobody wants that shit. And I said, no, I like it and I want it. And at the Musikmesse, I think it was 1994 or 1995, I'm not sure, we still had in front of the booth at the Frankfurt Musikmesse all our MIDI master keyboards. We had a real piano where we removed the built-in keyboard and replaced it by one of our master keyboards, and had loudspeakers inside of the piano. And it was, at the first place, it was a booth for our master keyboards. And I said, okay, but I also wanted to show my first modules of the. And they said to me, okay, you can go to the edge and and put it there, but because nobody will be interested in the result was the main booth was empty. And there was totally crowded about this small system where we had only, I don't know, 10 or 12 modules, all the parts of the MS404 and a few more. And this was the beginning. And the idea for me was to make an analog modular system available at a good price with high quality.
Yeah.
So what I changed, for example, we made some bad experience with the MS404 because the potentiometers were not mounted into the front panel. So we were a little bit wobbly. And I said that we have to change. And we learned a little bit during MS404 design. And I say, okay, it has to be ratchet, solid, and affordable. This was the main idea. And so I took the mechanical part of the Eurorack, which is now called Eurorack, was an industry standard.
Yeah. What do people make with those? Why does it exist? That standard. What is it used for if it's not used for making modular synths?
Well, during my study, physics, we had a lot of measuring equipment where we measured neutrons and things like that. They all had this design and this dimensions. And so I said, okay, why don't you take an existing standard?
Yeah.
But I changed a little bit because this standard was combined with a bus system which was very expensive. It was a large bus panel with 64 pins, so the bus panel was far too expensive. And so I decided, no, I have to design another type of affordable bus system. So that's the main idea for me. The mechanical part is unchanged.
Holger, were you there what is your involvement with the company? Were you involved with them at the time? And did you see and have experience of Eurorack before you met DIETER?
No, I wasn't involved with them at that time. By the way, there's another aspect why probably the Euro card, which was used with the Eurorack system, wasn't used. Some people might know the joke, they're 16 centimeters deep. Okay, not funny.
Yeah.
They're not skip friendly.
Yeah.
My involvement at that time was, not with Doepfer, because I was still using vintage synths which were available rather cheap at that time. So my involvement with Doepfer came later.
Did you see, in the 90s, did you see Eurorack emerge, or were you conscious of it?
Yes, because a friend of mine from Munich, Tom, introduced the system to me back then. But I found it really kind of fun and interesting, but there was, at that time, as it was considered to be trash, I had so much old modular, semi-modular equipment at home that it was a bit like, why should I get new ones, or why should I get additional stuff? Later on, I would say, I think my first compact modular stuff, that about 20 years ago probably, although that was only a sequencer because I still had some of the old stuff. But
was that was Doepfer Eurorack, was it? Or what did you have?
Personally, at that time, the System 100, Synth EA, various Korg MSs, some formats to take up space, all that types of...
I should probably ask you this question now, which is, what is your... I'll ask both of you this, but Holger, I'll ask you first, and then see if DIETER agrees, is what is your favorite Doepfer Eurorack module?
Oh, that's a bit of a strange question, because a single one is restricted to a single function.
That is true.
That's the point. I mean,
yes.
I could name a couple of favorites, but for example, I couldn't, oscillator-wise, I couldn't decide between the classic standard oscillator and the quad trapezoid. I think they both make a great pair as a voice, but that's a different story. Filter-wise, it's probably the 108.
The low pass,
that. And otherwise, let's say I couldn't name one which I don't really like, but then liking, not liking. It's horses for courses. I mean, it's...
Also, and especially it's the fact that I think if you build a system with Doepfer modules, I can think of an artist called Stevio. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he has a large modular synth, and he has a lot of Doepfer modules like the A155, and uses them to great effect. What he shows very well is the fact that your modules don't do a lot individually. And it seems to be what you're saying now, Holger, where it's, I can't pick one, because the whole point is that it's a modular synth and you're supposed to connect multiple modules to create functionality, which is obvious, but is, I think, something that is also lost as we get modules that do many functions in one and seek to give you a very, complete output. And it's your modules seem to exemplify this idea that
with some
it's modular. Yeah, absolutely. And so I will still ask you the question though of what is your favorite baby of yours?
I think I have 3 or 4.
Okay, that's fine. It's a modular.
Unfortunately, one of my favorite modules is no longer available because one of the circuits is no longer available, and even the sales were not very good. It's the A180A2. It's a BBD module with 6 taps. It's a tapped BBD module.
Various versions of that, didn't you, with different counts, right?
Yeah, you have 6 taps, and you can add the outputs of the taps. You can invert them or not invert and adjust the level. I think this was one of my favorite modules, but I also like the standard BBD modules, which have only one output. And you can see that I love it, or we love it, because we just show here an addition. It's a high-speed VCO module, which can be used to control the BBD modules, so you can play it like a VCO chromatically. So that's exactly in tune. Yeah, for example, for car plus strong synthesis or something like that. Yes, all the BBD stuff I really like, and I also like our sampler. It's a very, very simple unit, but you can do so many things.
Is that the 112?
The 112, exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Can I remember the numbers off the top of my head? Yes, I can.
I also like the wave multiplier, A137-1.
Oh, yeah.
I think these are my 3 favorites.
Those are very vibey, we would say. They're very characterful, noisy, interesting. I wonder if you could talk a bit about that, because I think when you look at Doepfer modules, there's a quite utilitarian aesthetic. They look very sciencey, and they look very simple. And we know that a modular is about combining things and making interesting functionality. But I wonder if you could speak a bit to character. What are what characters do you like? You don't seem afraid to make things that are quite vibey, like, the extreme filter and, the BBD is a good example. The sampler is very lo-fi. And, what is it that you love in that sort of sound?
Oh, it's difficult. To speak the truth, I don't play many music anymore. So it's because when you design all this stuff over the day, at the weekend or in the evening, you don't want to play around with the things, but do different things. So my musical activities are very low, I would say.
Fair.
And this is also one thing why Holger came to the company, because he's a musician. He's not a technician. He knows technical details, but he's much more musician than I do. And he always says, you could try this, you could combine this from the musical point of view. So I'm always at shows like Super Booth or Musikmesse. I always tell the people the technical stuff.
Yeah.
Well, there's a frequency range and things like that. But Holger is totally different. He says what he can do from a musical point of view.
So how then do you design modules? What has been your process for saying, this is a good idea, we should make this? Do you involve artists for feedback? Right. Holger, how did it work and how does it work now?
Well, it changed over the years. The first 20, 30 modules I just built on my own. And more came ideas from users, from customers. And there were also an A100 discussion group, which is no longer active, where a lot of new ideas were discussed. And in the meantime, it's a mixture. We have ideas ourselves, but we also listen about ideas from from customers. For example, we just when we came from the airport to the hotel, in the car there was Anthony Rother.
Oh yeah,
And,
amazing.
and
Cool.
And we designed a new module.
Oh, amazing. Wow.
So no, we didn't design, but we spoke about, and maybe we will realize his idea. So that's it's a combination of our ideas and what comes from outside.
I think one thing would be about the general philosophy is to have mostly one functionality per module, but implemented in a rather thorough way, not like limited to sweet spots. So that's probably one of the things which is our focus.
Yeah, the house style is do one thing well with range, so that it can be a key to other things. I think of like the A182-2 precision adder. Like, is it the dots? Yeah, I mean that is an amazing module that I just wouldn't have thought of. You know, how did that come to be? That's like the ability to combine voltages, to add sequences together. It's a great idea. Where does that sort of thing come from?
I think that was really my idea, because if you have several VCOs and you want to change the pitch of 3 VCOs, you have to use 3 controls.
Yeah.
Or if you want to change the octaves, you have to change the octaves of each one. And I wanted to have a common control for all VCOs in a system where I can change the pitch and the octave and the modulation for all VCOs at once. Yeah. So that's the idea behind.
Yeah. Okay, like you've released this format and it's done okay. With the reaction was everyone was crowding around the booth, and the main question is, when were you conscious that there were anyone else making modules for your format? You know, 'cause I know that there is also analog solutions and analog systems, and there's some slight compatibility, but they're not quite A100. Are you conscious of who was the first other person to make something for your system that you have invented?
I think I have to mention Bob Williams of Analog Systems, because he started at the same time.
Yeah.
So we didn't know each other at this time. So after all, he had the same idea, but he used another type of bus and another type of mechanical design. But I think we started at the same time. And I don't know why that the A100 system or the Eurorack became more common compared to the analog systems. I don't know it. I think it was really equal. There was it. We were not better than they, or they were not better than we were.
Well, you knew someone who had one. I suppose maybe there was a flashpoint where enough people had them. They told their friends. There's the birth of the internet as well at that point. I assume people were talking on the internet about the systems they bought.
Well, I think because the A100 system became more popular, was that there were very soon a few other companies or guys who offered modules based on our standard. For example, Livewire, Mike Brown, or Plan B, Peter Greenader, and they used our bus. And there were a lot of other one-man shows who used. And so I think the people were looking which modules from other manufacturers are compatible, and we had I don't know if there exist compatible modules to analog systems.
In the end, as long as you don't count elongated holes, no. With the same bus system, also no. I think also one of the reasons why analog systems didn't get that widespread were availability problems outside the UK.
Okay.
So they were a bit hard to obtain.
Yeah. Did you have like a distributor in the US? How did you sort of get the word out, and were your modules sold worldwide quite successfully? And
we had I have to start in Germany. So our first business concept was that if one of our customers was willing to show his system to other interested customers, he got a few percent.
Oh, wow. Yeah, like an affiliate program.
Right. Because customers said, okay, I'm in Hamburg or I'm in Berlin or whatever. Why can I see the system? And so we had, I don't know, 80 or 90 customers all over Germany who showed the systems to interested customers. And the next step was to find distributors outside of Germany. And we found one in the United States. It was, I don't know, remember the name. And we found one in Japan and so on. And
you had like EMIS in around these parts.
EMIS, of course,
in the UK. I forgot a question I was going to ask you, which, given that I have you here on stage and in front of everyone, I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask this and needle you a little bit. I'm not an electrical engineer, but I have been told by people who are electrically minded that in the world of electronics, a red stripe means positive voltage. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Why then is a red stripe negative in the world of Eurorack?
Well, that's difficult to answer. No. I can tell you why. It's a technical thing. We have 16 pins connectors and we have 10 pin connectors.
Yeah.
And if you use the 16-pin connectors, and you would have to have the red wire in the middle. If I could turn the wheel of time back, maybe I would do it different. I would start with boxed headers, for example.
Yes.
So there are a few things which I would do different if I could start again.
Do you put boxed headers on your modules as a standard now?
Yes, since, I don't know, many years.
That's good.
I don't know, 5 years or more. No, more.
I don't know exactly since when. But by the way, just as a side note, if you look at broadcast equipment, at least old German broadcast equipment, the anti-phase in audio is red. And the positive phase is white. So if we wanted to find an excuse, a lame one, to say why the negative voltage is, here it is.
We'll say that.
And there's another excuse. We said the colored wire is minus 12 volt because one octet, there are also ribbon cables with blue wires.
It's fine. I forgive you. I have blown up a module before, a Doepfer module, and I wrote you an email. I was like, but it sounds like, it's hard, and you may have assumptions about people's knowledge, or it's a tricky one. I was going to ask you also with regard to this thing of standards, there is no kind of voltage standard in Eurorack, and the 10 volts, 8 volts, 5 volts to fully open your envelope. There's no rules here, and if you could do it differently, do you think there was any way of creating a kind of standard that would have meant more uniformity across when all these other manufacturers started coming in? Is there a way you could have done that, do you think, or was it impossible?
There was many years ago the idea of several manufacturers like Erika Synth and we and Make Noise and so on. We met. I'm not sure if it was Musikmesse or Superbooth.
That was on Superbooth.
It was on Superbooth.
2016. I think the first Superbooth 2016.
Yeah, 2016. And there was a name, Red Stripe Down.
Yes, it was indeed.
And the idea was to find some kind of standard, not just for the mechanics and the busboard, but also the voltages. After all, we couldn't find an agreement. So it had to do with a lot of things. We made suggestions like the gate voltage has to be 5 volt. And the 1 volt per octave is a standard. It has to do with that many manufacturers used technology with 3.3 volts. And they said, no, we want not 5 volt, we want 3.3 volt. And others said, no, Roland uses 10 volt. And so after all, it didn't work. We had discussions over, I don't know, half a year or even a year, and then we came to no agreement.
I mean, also, you should take into consideration that some things have been ported to Eurorack from a classic system which existed before, like, for example, some surge stuff. So that was ported to the format, like the power bus and the mechanical side, but the rest would still be the same synth.
Yeah.
So, and they would all follow different standards. I mean,
well,
and also, as far as I know, part of the standards were published on our website anyway. So the original aim was not to create a standard, but making a system, because no standard existed.
Yeah.
It was just a system. Nobody thought that people would jump on it positively. And so you could say, at least from our side, all our standards were open, at least as soon as the internet existed.
Yeah.
And if someone decides to do it differently, absolutely fine. Although in a lot of cases they're still compatible. It's just little shifts where they aren't. But
we are aware of this problem, and that's why we designed a few modules which help to solve the problem. For example, we have a level shifter. So you can go in with a voltage of a minimum of 1.5 volt, as I know, and you can output 5 volt gate or 12 volt gate. So we have some modules which help customers which have such problems.
I'm reminded of a joke. The good thing about standards is that there are so many of them. So you didn't foresee this being like a whole industry, but we now know what happened, right? And there was an industry that like grew around your format, and this show is an example of it. There are many others. There are many companies, you know, who owe you their livelihoods. I myself make videos. My livelihood has become tied with Eurorack. And so I suppose my question to you is, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about this entire industry? And what are your thoughts about the industry in general?
Yeah, of course, I'm really very proud, because I never thought that this could happen. It was an idea to use the circuits of the MS404 and build a small modular system based on these circuits and add a few of them. And at the beginning of the A100, people asked me, what do you think about this? How will the people like it? And I said, okay, if we can sell it for 10 years, I would be totally happy. And no, I was totally wrong.
I have 2 more questions, which I'll roll into one, which is to ask both of you, what is both the future of Doepfer, the company, what is your vision for it as 2 people who will be leading it for the future, and what is the future of music technology as you would like it to be?
Well,
maybe, I don't know if Holger, if you want to, you're going to be the CEO.
I make a short answer.
Go on.
I do not answer to these questions anymore, because in the past, I was always wrong when I answered it. So,
fair. What do you think, Holger?
Well, that's not too far away from DIETER, to be honest. If I had the skill to foresee the future, I'd probably sitting in a cabin in the Austrian Alps, trying to monitorize my clairvoyance skills, but and still play synth, by the way.
Of course.
Well, the future. It's a bit of it's a strange question. It's not really a strange question. I think that what has become Eurorack has been so diverse. I see, for example, some people's attempts to create different alternative bus systems for polyphonic use and all that.
Yeah.
But the thing is that what we call Eurorack now was designed as a relatively simple, basic in a positive way, basic modular system, where you would connect all the modules on the front. We've already developed a very performance-oriented part of the, I call it market now, sorry, which actually, no offense, has not a lot to do with what modular systems were originally. This is not a judgment, it's just, so it's developed it's diversified in a way that I would not dare to foresee a future. I think that what, for example, we do is mainly try to build classic analog stuff which has a certain quality. This will probably be one thing, which is more like a tradition, keeping a tradition, although we are refining our existing designs and circuits to see if we can do something better. Although something better does not mean making them behave like plugins, but we try to keep their own life. Yeah, the future. No, sorry. If I could foresee that, no.
Well, I think it also has to do a lot of the users and the customers. What they expect. Yeah. There's a funny story. A few years ago, I was with Hans Zimmer at his studio, and we discussed all the things, Eurorack and so on. He said, the modules are the devil's candies. And because it makes so much fun, they are so playful, he says, it's totally different compared to sitting in front of a computer with a mouse. So patching the devil's candies and asking for new ones is something that is hard to
suppress.
Yeah. So he says he could do such a lot of things, of course, on the computer with all this stuff. But some ideas come only if he is using modules and patching things, which would never arise if he just uses the computer. And I think that's also one very important thing, because a lot of the output of the modular synths you can do also with computers in the meantime. But it's a totally different approach. And the question is what the users and the customers will ask for in the future.
Also, one could say that on the hardware, at least as long as it's analog, on the computer the knobs go to 10, on the hardware they go to 11. So it's also a difference. Chaos. No, that's a positive thing.
Yeah. Well, Dieter Doepfer, Holger Zapf, thank you so much. Thanks for what you've done.
My pleasure.
You're welcome.
If anyone has any questions, we've got a microphone. Are there any hands? Any questions? Anyone?
I'm going to apologize for this question, but recently I was trying to find the exact release date of the first Eurorack module, and all I could find was 1995. So if there was a birthday, which date would you put on Eurorack's birthday?
As far as I know, but if you are interested, I can look at it when I'm back in Munich. I think it was 1994. And the Musikmesse was always on March.
That was around Easter.
Around Easter. So I think it was around May 1994. Something like that.
Well, everyone, thank you for coming. Thanks once again to Dieter and Holger. Have a great show. Let's party. Oh, yes. Thank you, Dieter. Thank you, Holger. And thank you for creating the industry that has basically given me a career. I didn't really mention that in the start, but that's true. Like, without Doepfer, we don't have a whole industry of people. There's entire communities, like events like, Bristronica that probably wouldn't be happening in any way, shape or form, or even things like Superbooth, given that so much of what is represented there is Eurorack. So, amazing. What an amazing achievement. And also interesting how that whole thing, that it's never really a plan. You don't set out starting to make something that is going to change the world. You just do something because you feel you have some proficiency at it. And it's interesting also to hear how his route in is repairing stuff. I think of things like Verbos, where you have people repairing Buchla things, and that helps teach them how to build stuff. It's interesting. That's clearly a very, very useful way in. I especially enjoyed being able to ask the question about the red stripe, a thing that has caused a great deal of consternation to those who know, but the shorthand is because red stripe is supposed to mean positive, right? So why does it mean negative? I really appreciate that answer. The fact is, it's because the stripe would have to be in like the center of the cable. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't work. So it's on the extreme side. It's fine. That's the good thing about standards, is there's so many of them. So I want to say thank you. And if you're ever considering modules, I cannot recommend Doepfer modules enough. I hope that is plain and clear. And I hope anyone who's interested in modular can see that. I can tell you that the Doepfer stuff that I've had continues to work well and be bomb-proof. I've never had an issue except the occasions where I've actually plugged them in backwards. And that's the thing that Doepfer have gotten better at, is putting boxed headers on things, marking the -12 so that accidents happen less and less. But apart from that, their stuff is so good and their stuff is so affordable. And I think there is a certain company who would have you believe that you're being ripped off. And I can only cite Doepfer as such a fantastic example of not only the original gangsters, but also ones making really affordable, really high quality stuff. It doesn't get better. That is just what more could you want? And I also appreciate in many respects how Doepfer stuff is very single purpose. How the modules don't do 5 things, they do one thing. And the reason they do one thing is because you're supposed to use them modularly. I think of our great friend Stevio and how Stevio has put together lots of Doepfer modules to make this incredible sequencer. He's a fantastic example that that's the modular way. The way is not to necessarily buy one thing that does 5 things or gives you, you put one little thing in, you get a complete finished piece of music out. The idea is that you buy modules and you become the synth designer and you construct the functionality. Doepfer's modules exemplify that. They are the method by which you can build some dream analog sequencer of some kind. There is no better example. So in every way, shape or form, I want to laud Doepfer. Not only did he create this format, not only does he make affordable stuff, not only is it very high quality, not only is he still here and still doing it and the company is still going, but also the modules are great examples of modules, being modules. And they show us that if we find novel ways to connect them, then anything is possible. And that's up to you. So hats off. I also want to say, if you're enjoying this episode, please consider sponsoring on Patreon. Patreon.com/Milo Melodies. You can hop on for the price of a coffee a month. You can help keep Bleeps going. This episode is one of the first where I have hired someone to help edit and publish these episodes because I'm struggling to find the time to do that. So any input on Patreon is definitely appreciated because I have more outgoings now to pay this awesome person to do their excellent work. And I should add, Times is hard. And if you don't have the means to do so, one of the most helpful things you can do that is completely free is leave a review on things like the Apple Podcasts app and so forth. Leave reviews on the app and recommend the podcast to your friends. Reviews are incredibly helpful because they help it get noticed by others. So if you can, I would really appreciate if you could leave one. Hopefully positive. We'll be back soon. I have bleeps up my sleeve and I have help in getting them out. So we'll be back soon. Thanks very much.